In Darwin's The Descent of Man, he proposed that humans evolved in Africa where our closest relatives, gorillas and chimps, are found. This was not accepted by many because it lacked proof. Today, using molecular data, we can confirm that these are our closest relatives and we diverged about 7 million years ago. Not only that, but we also share approximately 98.5% of our DNA with chimpanzees. But what would this missing link look like? Considering humans are the odd man out in the evolution of modern apes, it probably resembled chimpanzees with some human-like features. Unlike apes, we have uniquely flexible thumbs, very little hair, smaller and blunter canine teeth, and we walk erect. But the most astonishing difference is how much larger our brain is than any ape. Of all these human-like adaptations, the ones that most define our species are our large brains and bipedal locomotion. But which came first? Searching far and wide, thousands of early human fossils have been found, but they are hard to place either because they are very fragmented and incomplete due to early human population size and habitat, or because there were multiple hominoid lineages whose classifications are still being debated today. Nonetheless, we approximate bipedal walking to about 6 million years ago, one of the first evolutionary innovations to distinguish us from apes. Our larger brains took much longer to evolve, not till about 2.4 million years ago. Still a long time. Around that time, we find early tools as well. Hominoids started to leave Africa around 2 million years ago, and we find the earliest evidence of controlled fire used for cooking dating back 1 million years ago. It is believed that early human ancestry resembles a tangled bush much more than a tree, and many lineages went extinct without having any descendants. We are also beginning to understand that some of these species existed at the same time and possibly in the same place. This makes it very difficult to track where humans actually came from. But we do know that our most recent relatives are the Homo sapiens, mostly because everyone else disappeared. There are two theories which explain why. The first is the multi-regional theory, which states Homo erectus evolved into Homo sapiens independently in several areas, due to natural selection acting the same way all over Asia, Europe, and Africa. The second theory, coined the out of Africa theory, states Homo sapiens originated in Africa and spread, replacing Homo erectus and the Neanderthals. This theory is supported by the fossil record as well as genetics, which predicts that the multi-regional hypothesis introduces 15 times more genetic difference between races than the out of Africa theory. But still, the debate goes on. Even though the fossil record and phylogenetic tree are messy and tangled, as far as human ancestry goes, it gives us a good outline. We can see that we first diverged from modern apes approximately 7 million years ago, that we began to walk upright, and that there were multiple hominoid species. One of the earliest, Australopithecus, was a small, hunched-over, hairy ape man, but they walked upright. They lived for quite some time, dating from 4 million years ago until 1.5 million years ago, when the genus vanishes. Looking at the fossil record, we find that our direct ancestors, or what we believe to be anyway, arise around 2.4 million years ago, the genus Homo. Their brain size resembled that of a modern human. Not only that, but they appeared more human-like and were the first to use tools. We can conclude that they began getting taller as well, with an early Homo femur that is approximately the same size as a modern female's and dates back to 1.9 million years ago.
We don't know why selection diverged our common ancestor into ape and humans. but finding out what genes makes us human has been a fascinating endeavor taken up by many labs. The first attempt was made by Alan Wilson and Mary Claire King. The results were that protein sequences by chimps and humans only differed by 1%, which was later edited to 1.5%. The general public and science community were in wonder that being a human was a few mutations away. Recent work shows that although 1.5% might not seem like much difference, a protein with a long sequence can have 3 to 4 differences in protein sequence. The chance that a protein will have at least one difference in sequence will therefore be much higher than 1.5%. Proteins are essential for building and maintaining our bodies. A single difference can have big effects. Besides protein sequences having differences, we have 6% of our genes not found in chimps. On top of this, we also differ in the number of copies of genes we share. The genetic divergence between ourselves and chimpanzees comes in several forms. Being human does not rely on a few key mutations happening. Races are defined as populations of a species that are both geographically separated and differ genetically in one or more traits. There are no sharp boundaries between races. Any variation is weakly correlated to physical traits. Of the variation between races of humans, only 10 to 15% of the difference is due to physical appearance. The rest, 85 to 90%, occurs among individuals of a race. Races don't show different genes, but they do have different frequencies of genes, such as blood types. So the main question, are we evolving? The answer is yes. As long as there's heritable variation and a difference in survivability, there will be evolution eventually. An example of a recent human evolution is lactose intolerance. Middle Eastern and North African populations domesticated cattle 7,500 to 9,000 years ago and later brought them to Europe. Being able to drink milk directly is a great benefit. Milk has lactose, and lactose is broken down by a protein called lactase. In adulthood, the lactase gene is turned off, making oneself lactose intolerant. Natural selection would have favored those who can tolerate lactose. Another recent example of evolution is natural selection selecting sickle cell anemia as a normal hemoglobin gene. In the 1940s in Africa, doctors were noticing patients with sickle cell had a higher chance of surviving malaria. Areas with a lot of malaria cases are shown to have a much higher percentage of people with sickle cell anemia than elsewhere. The sickle cell gene is being selected, and those with it survive in a higher proportion. In conclusion, as long as there's heritable variation and a difference in survivability, there will be evolution.
Now, humans feel the need to attach some sort of otherworldly meaning for why life exists, rather than just acknowledging and accepting that life only is, and evolution just is. And whether or not we are, at our core, we are just animals, this doesn't make us any less civilized than those who believe that life just is, rather than life having to have some kind of greater meaning. But it's things like this that make humans odd, and this is part of the human condition. And one thing that is exclusive to humans is the existence of morality and intellect. The rise of our intellect made way for morality. Intellect is, in its core, it's obviously of biological origin, and because of this greater intellect, now we have the capacity for ethics, and with this we form all sorts of moral codes that different cultures tend to uphold for one reason or another, to keep the peace or provide some kind of stability to the society. And humans aren't the only ones who have a society. Ants have have their own society, but obviously no other species has gone to the extent that we have with society. Now, another odd topic for humans is mutualism. And usually in nature, you see in mutualistic behavior, it'll be, I give you something, or I do something for you, and I in turn gain something from you. It's a two-way street. And for humans, that does exist. Whether it's you see a stranger and they ask for a few dollars, $1 or $2, and you have this like voice inside where you're like, oh, I have to. I feel some kind of social pressure to give this person money, because you'll feel bad if you don't sometimes. And obviously there's no other species that has this broad range of mutualistic behavior. We extend reciprocity to complete strangers. At times it doesn't even benefit us. Maybe it makes us feel good. That's a reward pathway, but those sorts of things are exclusive to us, and it's really something pretty amazing, and obviously right now exclusive to our species. And thanks for watching. Thanks for the class. It was a great class.